From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
The mining city at one point had almost a dozen Roman Catholic churches. But after the closure of 2 this weekend, we're going to delve deeper into the finances and the future of churches in Butte.
I'm Joe St. George. It's now been 2 years since the fall of Kabul, Afghanistan. Coming up, we speak with some Gold Star families set to speak in Washington this week about their pain 2 years later and questions for those who are in charge.
Every year, FWP tries to forecast what the upcoming hunting season will look like. I'm Chet Lehman. Coming up, we'll take a look at how last winter's hard winter here in southwest Montana impacted 2 species in 2 completely different ways.
And last week, our John Amy showed us that the 90-foot statue of Our Lady of the Rockies getting a new coat of paint. And this morning, he's going to take us inside that 90-foot statue overlooking the mining city. Alrighty, we are 6.5 hours into Monday. Matt, how are we feeling so far?
You know what? So far, so good. A little extra coffee got us rolling.
Yeah. Here we are.
Here we are.
Let's do it. And first day of school for a lot of people over the Treasure State.
And it looks like the temperatures are going to cooperate pretty comfortably for most of the day. Early morning temperatures doing quite well. You can see mainly clear skies in the mining city. I'll show you that view here in a second. 40s and 50s this morning, 43 in West Yellowstone. A few areas dealing with fog out toward West Yellowstone and the surrounding area. But overall, we're looking at dry conditions for today. Spotty shower chance late in the afternoon. You can see that trying to pour in around 4 or 5 o'clock. That's in Gallatin Park County, parts of Broadwater County. The Mark County could see a few showers. But this is the view for most of us. A few passing clouds and mild temperatures through the afternoon. Daytime highs near 80 for Bozeman. There's Butte. Again, pleasant morning. We're going to break down what you can expect. Mild day today, warmer temperatures tomorrow, and then a big cool down. Your complete forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. Now, right off the top, the mining city at one point had almost a dozen Roman Catholic churches. But after the closure of 2 this past weekend, Butte now has just 4 churches. MTN's Megan Thompson looks into why the churches had to shut their doors and takes us inside the last Mass at the 120-year-old church.
Well, it's a sad day for some parishioners here at St. Joe's Catholic Church in Butte, where the doors are about to close for good. It's one of 2 churches that are going to close their doors this weekend due to financial reasons.
I have came to this church since I've been a child, every single Sunday with my family and all of our relatives.
Melissa Butte married her husband at the church almost 30 years ago, and she saw her children baptized in the church. So she says it is a painful day.
I absolutely love it, and I'm very heartbroken that it's closing.
Melissa Butte was one of around 75 parishioners who attended the final Mass at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, located on Utah Avenue, that has served the Central Butte neighborhood for 121 years.
Usually we try to suspend the masses and see if we can in the future open it back up if we have enough priests. But the decision was made with these 2 just because of the shape of the building and the number of other parishes in town.
Sometimes they have to merge one to the other.
While addressing parishioners at the end of Mass, Bishop Austin Vetter said that a November 2022 letter from Church Council said that fiscal and personnel realities make the continuance of the parishes unfeasible.
Factors include the financial situation of both parishes is clearly unworkable. The Butte area can easily accommodate a reduction from 6 to 4 parishes, and rural Catholics in the diocese should not suffer disproportionately.
Bishop Vetter says that the parishes of St. Joe's and St. John's will merge with St. Anne's Catholic Church, and at least 2 pieces of religious artwork will follow parishioners, while other artwork and church buildings and property will be sold to pay off debts.
The parish building closes, but not the parish. It's 121 years old. I mean, there's a lot of emotion, and it should be. It should be, right? Because of all the prayers that were uttered here. It was a place dedicated to God.
In Butte, Megan Thompson, MTN News.
Thank you very much, Megan. Now onto the national scene. This week, Gold Star families who lost loved ones in Afghanistan in the final days of U.S. operations there will meet in Washington to mark 2 years since the fall of Kabul. Our Joe St. George with a look at how the political debate about leaving that country is still raising questions 2 years later, as well as still invoking pain for families who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
The end of August and beginning of September conjures up different emotions for different people. But for some Gold Star families who lost loved ones during the fall of Afghanistan now 2 years ago, this time of year will always be marked with some pain and some sadness and questions for those who were in charge.
I said, Mom, Ryan's dead.
2 years have passed, but it isn't any easier for Paula Knaus Self to talk about the death of her son, Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Christian Knaus. This is the final message he sent her on Snapchat this past Saturday, marking 2 years since he was killed in a bombing in Afghanistan as the U.S. withdrew troops after a nearly 20-year presence. Knaus was one of 13 American service members killed in what is now known as the Abbey Gate bombing.
I couldn't believe that Ron was gone.
Since that time, Self has turned grief into action, which will be on full display this week in Washington as other Gold Star families who lost loved ones during the U.S. withdrawal will participate in a Tuesday roundtable on Capitol Hill, not only to mark 2 years, but also to bring attention to what happened.
Who is going to be taking responsibility for the loss of lives and that debacle? Is it just the military that's to be blamed? Or was it because of political decisions?
The event occurring as Republicans on Capitol Hill continue their investigation into what happened. Within the last month, the State Department turning over to Congress around 300 related documents. Meanwhile, a separate bipartisan Afghanistan War Commission continues its multi-year look into the conflict. The White House earlier this year posting a 12-page review about the Afghanistan withdrawal on its website, in which it placed some blame on the Trump administration for allowing the Taliban to become so organized. The White House writing, "We continue to mourn the loss of the 13 heroes and vow to continue to support their families." The question of how Americans lost their lives isn't the only political debate happening 2 years later. There remains frustration by some that the U.S. isn't issuing more visas to help more citizens of Afghanistan now trapped under Taliban rule. As for Self, she just hopes this issue is on the minds of voters this election.
Who's going to take responsibility for causing such chaos?
Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
Now, back in Treasure State headlines, what will hunting season be like this year? Well, there are a lot of variables that go into that answer and to that question. For This Week in Fish and Wildlife, MTN's Chet Lehman takes a look at some of those variables and how much Mother Nature will play a role.
Forecasting the upcoming hunting season for the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife and Parks requires them not only to look back at the success of last season, but to look at the impact of winter on the wildlife. An interesting note, last year's hard winter was good news, bad news, depending on what species you hunt. For elk, for example, last year's hard winter meant more successful hunting for elk in this area.
Some elk populations remain above objective. We actually saw elk populations come from above population objective to within population objective in one hunting district, hunting district 360. And then populations remain below objective in hunting district 310, which is the area kind of south of Big Sky.
Same tough winter, same area, different species. Wildlife reduced the numbers of pronghorn antelope, and that meant the young ones.
We saw what looks like about a 30% reduction in the pronghorn herd in the Madison Valley because of winter conditions, mostly predation that occurred during heavy snowfall.
Jacobson says as far as mule deer and whitetail deer go, numbers look good going into the new season. Now, no one would question the impact of weather. Annual migration happens because of it. So as hunters are gearing up for the 2023 season, Jacobson says look to the skies and be prepared.
For hunters, you know, the message I would give is wildlife populations are doing fairly well, especially elk and deer, and there are plentiful opportunities to harvest these animals. You know, that harvest that opportunity may change, either you know, in good or bad ways depending on weather. So you know, keep that in mind as you go into hunting season, that you know, weather plays a huge role.
As a reminder, archery season begins Saturday. The general hunting season begins Saturday, October 21st. This week, south of Big Sky. Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Thank you very much, Chet. Now, last week, our John Amy showed us that the 90-foot statue of Our Lady of the Rockies got a new coat of paint. And this morning, he's going to take us inside that 90-foot statue overlooking Butte.
So I'm standing outside the giant Our Lady of the Rockies statue, but did you know it's actually hollow inside and there's actually something in there if you've never been in? Let me show you what you're missing. How about that? A lot of memorials, very sacred place for people. As you can see, there's memorials on the wall. The Our Lady of the Rockies, very sacred to those of the Catholic faith, and so we have many, many rosary up here that people visiting have come and hung on the supports of the wall, right next to the memorials of people. And that's a little look inside of the Our Lady of the Rockies statue.
I just think that is so incredible. Thank you very much, John. Now we're going to take a short break here on Montana This Morning.